Okay, greetings, family. This is Iyapo Ngina, also known as the Rogue Black Girl, born as Cassandra Floyd. And if you are watching me do another reading of The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth by Monica Zhu and Barbara Moore. And so I've been reading in this book since about February now. And it's a big book. This is my second time reading it live, and it is necessary for me to read it live. Every time I read this book, I'm just, let's see here. Okay, I don't know what is going on with my I'm broadcasting from two places, so it's got all this extra stuff. Anyway, so if you're watching, thank you. I always encourage people. I know that we all have short attention spans these days. I get it. We got busy lives. I get it. And I attempt to read this book for an hour each time. So I know that's a long time to commit. So I always encourage people, if you got house chores, house duties, things you need to take care of, turn it on or tune in while you're cleaning or while you're whatever your bag is, while you're driving, whatever. This book, man, I cannot stress it enough. Is so urgent. It is so pressing. It is like, I imagine this book being evidence of our ability to channel, our ability to receive intervention. You understand? And it's the game changer. Like, to me, it's the game changer. You understand? It is politically sound, historically accurate, archaeologically backed, psychologically, biologically sound, and it is spiritually informed. And this is the place that we're trying to arrive. We're trying to arrive in human society at a place where all mysteries have been revealed and unveiled, because the past few thousand years of mystery has served one purpose, and that is to keep people away from power. That's it. Mysteries exist for the sole purpose today of preventing people from having access to power. And ultimate power is the unveiling and the bridging of gaps and the opening of doors that allows us to remember that ultimate power is the self, is the spirit manifest in flesh, right? That it is the two that are necessary, spirit and matter, for the personification of real power. You understand? And so, the life that I have lived, as an activist, as a mother, as a revolutionary, as a grandmother, as a healer, as a scientist, right? As a spiritualist, have all worked together in their time to allow me to remember that all of these discussions are necessary. All of these things are necessary in the demystifying of what it is that we're trying to achieve. I say this often, and I tell my clients this often, that we all have the same destiny. Now, that destiny may unfold and reveal itself in different ways, in different personifications, but we all have the same destiny. And that destiny is to remember who we are, is to remember that the we and the I are the same. That is what it means to say that we are all one, that we are all connected, right? Sometimes that's hard for us to swallow because Again, the mysteries are created, the divisions are created, the borders are created, the boundaries are created for one purpose, baby. What purpose does it serve to create mystery, to create borders, to create boundaries, right? To create differences and exacerbate them and exploit them? All the things in the world that we experience as isms, right? Right now exist for one purpose alone. The forgetting, our collective forgetting, is necessary to transform God into pliable matter ripe for exploitation. That is all. That is all. So when I first read this book, and I read this book reluctantly because my own isms and my own preconceived notions had me say, I ain't interested in reading no book called The Great Cosmic Mother. Sound like some hippie shit, you understand? I'm not interested in reading no book written by no white woman. I'm not interested in reading no book that is not directly speaking to my circumstances as a Black woman living in America. I ain't interested. And as a, as a spiritual woman, especially now, especially more now, um, I had to accept that interventions come in different ways, right? Profound interventions. And so my prayer has always been, allow me to be open to receive what is for me. Allow me to be open to receive what spirit has for me, even if it makes me uncomfortable, because that's where the gems are. The gems is not in the periods of ease. The period, the epiphany, the diamonds, the gems are in those places where we are uncomfortable and that we can still move with grace through that shit. And this book was one of those gems. So that's why I'm reading this book. And I didn't intend to, have a preface because the book is big, but it's important because spirit is on the move, baby. Spirit is on the move. The period is demanding more of us than we've done. Even those of us who champion ourselves revolutionaries or activists or whatever our bag is, spirit is requiring more of us, every last one of us. And that more has to be well informed from every area, not from the area that we think that we're prolific, that we are well versed. I just had this experience that was way outside my comfort zone, baby. Way outside it. Oh my God, way outside it. And to be able to walk away from it, extracting what was needed from me, what was needed for me, and to let it go and not be plagued with it, not be plagued by it, was big for me. Because, anyway, I'll say that for another day. But just to say, we have to be open, baby, in the places of darkness, in the places of discomfort, in the places that are outside our norm, in the groups of people that we usually don't rock with, whatever. We have to be willing to go into these spaces and know that only growth can occur as a consequence. That's some hard shit that's some hard shit for us to do, baby. It's still hard for me. It's still hard for me to do that, to go into places unknown, to be with people unlike me, to deliberately place myself in areas of discomfort and know that only growth can occur. Only growth can occur. Only growth can occur. That's why, man. That's why this narrative that exists right now about the end of the world and the last days and the rapture of the church and Jesus coming back, we always do this. We always revert to fear and terror and despair and uncertainty when that which is uncomfortable and unfamiliar to us presents itself. We never see it as an opportunity for growth. We never see it as an opportunity for evolution. We never see it as an opportunity for blessings to unfold, right? And so me, in the Ifa tradition, I'm a daughter of Oya. And Oya is looked upon um, with fear and fright and uncertainty and all of that shit. And so in our fear, fright, and uncertainty, people can be hella disrespectful. It's been my gripe for years. Oya, baby. Yes, she brings the rain. Yes, she brings the storm, but she ensures the blessings. And people forget that part. People forget that part, that with the storm, that with the winds, with the rain, with the uncertainty, with the dark, with the deep comes the blessings. But those things are necessary to clear out all the old shit that we have accepted, that we have believed, that we have held on to. She's like, baby, look, you are stalemate. Your ass ain't moving forward. So let me go on through here and wreck all of this dead, dank, still stagnant ass shit so I can make way for blessings to come into your life that you've been ready for, waiting for, ready for, deserve. But baby, this gonna hurt a little bit. But with the hurt comes the growth. With the discomfort comes the illumination, right? So that's why this book, that's why I'm harping so much on it. That is why I have been struggling for years to get people to understand the significance, listen, of this book. It anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and read because I could do a whole other thing on this thing. This is The Great Cosmic Mother: Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth by Monica Zhu and Barbara Moore. Okay. So yesterday I read chapters 27 through 31, and we only got halfway through chapter 31. So today, as the title implies, this is part 2 of 31, and then we're going to read straight through to chapter 33. This is the place in the book where the chapters get a lot longer, so my chapter reads and the descriptions will be significantly shorter. So this is from the chapter called, let's see, this is chapter 31. This is The Dark of the Moon and Moon Blood. I guess I will pick up, a little bit before where we left off yesterday. And I'll preface this too. So this chapter this section in this chapter is so important. It's been something that's been sitting on me for a while. I've asked many priests in my tradition, and I've asked people from different cultures, like historically, what the significance of this is. And so this book was written in 1987, by the way, but this chapter spoke to it. And so I wanted to reiterate this. Hair has always been connected with the idea of cosmic power. Hair is electric, radiating energy, a symbol of vitality and spiritual illumination. Witches believed their magic was in their hair. During the European witch hunts, the first thing the church did to capture witches was to shave them from head to foot, thus driving out their devil power that lived in their body hair. American Indians have fought hair clipping missionaries for centuries. To mourn a dead person, the hair was cut, signifying a life offering to death. With the increase of urban priesthoods and the unbalanced obsession with the death aspect of the Great Mother, the more we find symbolic connections occurring between death and the shaving of the head, sacrifice, and castration. The priests of Isis had bald heads, and still today we have tonsured monks, shorn nuns, and the Christian notion that a woman's hair is a seductive, witchy insult to God and must be covered by his and must be covered in his church. And thus, traditional Jewish brides cut off their long, glorious hair, sacrificing original female power to be subordinate to a male in marriage. Um, Among the Greeks, the goddess of the dark moon was Hecate. She was queen of ghosts and of the crossroads, where many midnight rituals took place. Hecate was the destroyer. Newborn children and animals were sacrificed to her. She was the giver of the rain as well as harvest storms. Her major festival was celebrated on August 13th. In one Hecate legend, the mother, in her terrible aspect, takes the form of a bear or a boar, killing her own son lover. But as the new moon restores him but as the new moon, she restores him to new life. Dark Diana of the Romans, goddess of the witches, wore a necklace of testicles, echoing the castration nature of Kali. And the Gorgon Medusa, her magic hair, composed of writhing snakes, petrified all who looked at her into rigidity and death, into stone. Thus, many of the primal aspects of the cosmic mother were turned into aspects of the enemy. But from the beginning and even far into patriarchal times, the dark of the moon symbolized divination, illumination, and the powers of healing. Soma, the mind expanding potion, was the dark fruit of the moon tree. It opened the gaping depths of darkness from which magic incantations rises up. Darkness is the time of tactility and of the voice. So the dark goddess or dark moon presided over lovemaking, metamorphosis, wonder working, and medicinal healing. Her sexual aspect was not separated from these other powers until the solidification of the patriarchy. Only then was she fragmented, reduced to simply a sex goddess or the wife. The Neolithic Near Eastern goddess Isis, Astarte, Ashtoreth, Ishtar, Artemis, Diana, all have their dark nature, one half of the cosmic process. In that aspect, they were imaged as half snake or half fish. To men, who were and are in opposition to her ever-changing cyclic nature, she appears dreadful, hostile, arbitrarily destructive, moody, negative, the yawning mouth of the womb tomb, abysmally prolific with children and with death, threatening castration, coming and going. During the Neolithic age, men who saw the dark moon goddess in a dream had to put on women's clothes and give themselves to other men. The dream image was a message that they needed rebalancing. Oh, y'all ain't heard the word God up in this shit today. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. During the Neolithic age, men who saw the dark moon goddess in a dream had to put on women's clothes and give themselves to other men. The dream image was a message that they needed rebalancing. To women and men, in accord with her nature, she gives magic power and cosmic insight into the life process, forever revolving from light into dark and back again. From earliest Stone Age times, the process of birth was the prototype for the process of spiritual rebirth, of higher birth, into the heavens as an immortal or a star. But with increasing male domination of religious ideas and the priestly projection of hostile fears onto the great goddess, this higher birth was seen increasingly as a break away from the mother. Mm, mm, mm. As a break away from the mother, the first birth was into, quote, mere flesh, but the second was into manhood, a state of non material immortality, uncontaminated by the female process. Oh, at this point, the spirit begins to be defined as everything that is not earth, that is not nature, that is not female, i.e., it becomes an inclusive possession of males as elitist as it is abstract. Come on, y'all. Let me mark this page. In the early small kinship structures, the custom of exomy had led women to take mates from outside the mother clan, so that childbearing women were always the cohesive group within the community. Their mates tended to be visitors, blood strangers to the matrifocal group. Among the matriarchal Hopi, where the women propose marriage to men, the husband moves into the woman's home, which she inherits from her mother, but he spends most of his time in his mother's home, where he is blood related. The same customs were found throughout pre-colonial Africa, and no doubt existed among all our European pagan ancestors. To gain some cohesion and sense of participation, these outside males bonded together in rituals in which they imitated female processes. As Bruno Bettelheim writes in Symbolic Wounds, it is probable that all men's initiation rites were originally based on men's desire to imitate, to participate in women's menstruation and childbirth, which were overwhelmingly magical events. Magic because of their periodicity as well as their blood power. Come on. Act like you hear what I'm saying. Okay? Australian Aboriginal males cut wounds into their penises, inserting stones to keep the wound permanently open. This rite imitates female bleeding. The wound is called, in their language, a vagina. Y'all ain't hearing the word of God today, okay? I'm trying to take y'all to church right now. You understand? During this rite, young men pass through the legs of older men. I'm sorry. Listen, I don't know if y'all can see all the tabs in this book. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm still taking notes. Every time I read this book, I'm still taking notes because I am telling you, these women were channeling when they wrote this book. This is my fourth time reading this book. Every single time I read it, this is my second time reading it live online. Every time I read it, I'm having to stop and take notes because something comes through that I didn't see before. You understand? Anyway, during this rite, young men pass through the legs of older men, being, quote, reborn from their male womb. Now, nowhere can we find any rites or mysteries in which women have tried to imitate a male process or function. This alone tells us about the source of original mana, power. All blood rituals derive from the female blood of menstruation and childbirth. Y'all ain't heard? This is why in the Bible, Jehovah's covenant with Abraham was ritually sealed with the lifeblood of Abraham. And this covenant is kept by circumcising the foreskin of every Hebraic male infant. The Hebrews, like everyone else, were originally goddess worshippers. And it was her magic blood that symbolically sealed all covenants. As the patriarchy solidified its power, however, many of the blood ritual imitations of women's functions were turned into taboos against women's functions, taboos of avoidance and hygiene. As the biblical Old Testament illustrates, patriarchal society places heavy taboos and penalties of shame on menstruation and on women during and after childbirth. Such taboos were originally restrictions made by women themselves, the menstrual hut customs, to protect their bodies and to guarantee their sacred solitude during the moon's functions, their separateness from men and children. But as male power structures and religious reactions against the goddess rise, seeing the great mother more and more as the castrating other, the terrible devourer, these moon blood taboos are given negative connotations. Women during menstrual periods and childbirth are defined as unclean and dangerous, especially threatening to social manhood, and its co-opted assumptions of sacred wounds and higher powers gained through the second ritual birth via the elder male body. The female body, which actually does these things, becomes an embarrassing threat to the male's metaphorical assumption of the blood powers of menstruation and childbirth. No male priest can compete with a woman in these areas. Come on. So the menstruating woman is often totally excluded from group life, cast out into the bush or forest or to fend for herself. She must be ritually cleansed before she can return to the tribe. Women in labor also must be secluded to protect men from contamination and must undergo periods of purification following childbirth. Among biblical Hebrews, a longer period following the birth of a daughter, of course, than a son. What was once seen among original humans as sacred and magically powerful to the whole kin group or tribe becomes under male religion impure, filthy, dangerous, negative, and evil. The source of life, female, is redefined and now hated as the enemy of male life. What was once woman's power is now to be woman's curse, woman's shame, woman's estrangement from God. In the Bible, we can see the original Aurelian newspeak occurring, in which false male imitations of menstruation and childbirth, the circumcised foreskin, the wounds of Christ, are made sacred and holy, while the real thing done by women is made filthy, sinful, and bestial. This terrible and unnatural split in the human psyche is still with us today, of course. Patriarchal religions are based on it. Under patriarchy, this split was projected everywhere into the cosmic spiritual realms, into human culture and customs, into scientific perception of the mental and physical worlds. Under Bronze Age urban priesthoods, the terrible mother was worshipped more and more with painful rites and punitive exorcisms. She became, in fact, the debased flesh, which must be flailed and disciplined into submission, a religious practice that served very well a rationalization for the mass exploitation of human slave labor by the growing urban states and their ruling elites. Y'all have not heard, okay? In human flesh and blood, if human flesh and blood is nothing but, then by all means, use it up. Ha! Oh my God. If human flesh and blood is nothing but, then by all means use it up. With the devaluation of the great mother's female bleeding came the debasement and exploitation of human life itself. Women's menstrual blood always was, always is the essence of the creative power of the Great Mother. Blood is the physical counterpart of the mystical life force spiraling throughout the cosmos, nourishing the universe, sustaining its breathing in and out, its manifestations and dissolutions. Ancient women withdrew during their menstrual periods to meditate and fast and pray and communicate with her. Women living together in cooperative groups do begin to coordinate the time of their periods. Ancient women bled and meditated together under the bleeding and meditating moon. Even under the punitive taboos of patriarchy, women withdrew to their menstrual huts with some feeling of voluntary seclusion, a chance to get back in contact with their own nature for a few days each month, apart from the demands of children and men. In women's mysteries, ancient and modern, oh, sorry about that. In women's mysteries, ancient and modern, Esther Harding suggests that one of the prime causes, come on and tell me that you hear me. Can I get a hands up or something? You understand? Esther Harding suggests that one of the primary causes of neurosis, illness, depression, and pain suffered by many women in modern cultures during our menstrual periods, the premenstrual syndrome, especially as it is known today, is that we now have no menstrual ceremony of any kind. Menstruation is just each woman's private affliction or annoyance or curse. It has no positive value or function at all. We cannot withdraw into contemporary menstrual huts to listen to our bodies, minds, and needs, to establish contact with our cyclic and primal cosmic selves, to experience ourselves as sacred animals. And ironically, while being deprived of ritual solitude while we bleed, we are also isolated from the communion of other women who are bleeding. Each woman must go through each life stage, transition, and crises in silent aloneness, unsupported by either ritual or women's groups. This combination of meaningless isolation and lack of ritual solitude is the final patriarchal taboo against women, a major cause of mental illness and a major barrier against self-realization. Thus was women's ancient collective power broken. Women under patriarchy, isolated from each other and from ourselves, could no longer threaten male dominance of life or question male co-optation and imitation of our original female processes. Oh, somebody about to be mad. I'm just saying. I can already feel people being mad about this shit. You understand? But some faint traces of the ancient beliefs and practices remain, even in the modern world, even if in sometimes grotesque form. A continuing belief in the potency of women's menstrual blood is rationalized in tantric yoga. Ritualized in tantric yoga. A man can only reach the ultimate tantric goal by having intercourse with a woman power holder at the time of her menstruation. At the time of her menstruation. This is when her red energy is most magically potent and intense. And among American motorcycle gangs like the Hells Angel, a male cannot become a full member until he performs the blood rite of cunnilingus with his woman during her menstrual period. This is how he proves his, quote, macho toughness to the other males. He probably doesn't know that he is worshiping the Great Mother. Oh, 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 oh. Quote, from hidden dirty secret to symbol of the life power of the goddess, women's blood has come full circle, end quote. Until recently, there have been no books on the psychology of menstruation, the rhythms and cyclicity of our woman lives. In the 1970s, however, two such books were published: Female Cycles by Paula Wediger in 1975, and The Wise Wound, Menstruation and Every Woman by Penelope Shuttle and Peter Redgrove in 1978. Paula Rediger is an American feminist health worker and holds an advanced degree in psychology. Penelope Shuttle and Peter Redgrove are British poets influenced by Jungian psychoanalysis. They came to write their book as a result of Penelope Shuttle's own severe premenstrual depressions and her menstrual pains, and her attempts at finding their reason and cure through in-depth dream analysis. The two books complement each other. The Wise Wound is poetic and religious, while Female Cycles is more medical and immediately practical. Together, they chronicle the atrocious violence done to us women in societies ruled over and defined by wombless men who do not experience the lunar cyclic rhythms in their bodies. The Wise Wound shows how the human female's menstrual cycle was the critical evolutionary advance that initiated human society and culture. Y'all have not heard. As we said in the first section, the fact that the human female is freed from the estrous cycle of other primates means that in woman sexuality is sexuality is distinguishable from, separable from fertility. In woman alone among all creatures on earth. This shifting of sexual hormonal action led to increased alertness of the brain and its electrical activity, i.e., women have sexual energy at our disposal separable from reproductive energy. For woman, biology is not destiny in the narrow reproductive sense, even if patriarchy has tried through the dogmatic suppression of our autonomous sexuality to reverse this evolution. Let me highlight this real quick. So in chapter 1, you can go back and listen to that if you'd like on YouTube, but she talks about the biological history, the story of the biological studies, anthropological studies that have demonstrated that human evolution in general had female humans sexual evolution to thank for overall human evolution. And that woman's evolution, our biological evolution, began with our transition from an estrous menstrual cycle to the lunar menstrual cycle that we have today, which separated estrus. For those of you who don't know, the estrous cycle is what animals experience, like when a cat goes into heat, right? She goes into heat with the sole purpose, right, of procreation. Human females used to have that same estrous cycle that we procreated, and that sex was for the sole purpose of procreation when we lived with an estrous cycle. But our sexual evolution from an estrous cycle to a lunar cycle is what separated sex from being solely having reproductive function and capacity to having a separate capacity that was for the sole purpose of pleasure. So she reiterates that here. I'm just highlighting it. And then she ends by saying the purpose of patriarchal religions in particular has been to reverse that evolution. Come on now. I'm going to read that for you again because y'all ain't heard. The Wise Wound shows how the human female's menstrual cycle was the critical evolutionary advance that initiated human society and culture. As we said in the first section, the fact that the human female is freed from the estrous cycle of other primates means that in woman sexuality, excuse me, in woman, sexuality is distinguishable from, separable from fertility. In woman alone, among all creatures on earth. This shifting of sexual hormonal action led to increased alertness of the brain and its electrical activity, i.e., women have sexual energy at our disposal, separable from reproductive energy. For woman, biology is not destined. For woman, biology is not destiny in the narrow reproductive sense, even if patriarchy has tried through the dogmatic suppression of our autonomous sexuality to reverse this evolution. Patriarchal religion is, in this sense, a primate religion. Trying to pull the human female back from her evolutionary advance over other primates, for in this one aspect alone does human sexuality differ from primate sexuality. And it is for this subliminal reason that all hardcore patriarchal fundamentalists oppose evolutionary theory so vehemently, because the Godhead of human evolution is its trigger, its energy source is and can only be female. Mm-mm. The sole function of the clitoris is sexual pleasure, and it is the only organ in the human body devoted to pleasure alone. The penis carrying both reproductive semen and sexual response in every erotic act. This means that woman's sexual capacity is enormously enhanced and multiple, and it is present in us from birth to death. Clitoral sensation being determined neither by puberty nor menopause. Y'all ain't heard. Y'all ain't heard. When freed, woman's autonomous sexual capacity is a great source of psychic, productive, creative, and magical powers. It was at the origins of human culture, and it is necessary to form. It is necessary to any further human evolutionary advance. Oh my God. Oh my God. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? There is no evolution without female sexual pleasure. Y'all ain't heard. Y'all have not heard. If we are to advance as human beings past the chaos that we live in right now, we have to center women's sexual pleasure as the trigger for our next evolutionary advance. Come on. Why would that be hard to believe? For 6,000 years, women, their sexual autonomy, their pleasure has been taken from them under the guise of salvation from themselves, from their flesh. Why would we not see that female sexual pleasure is the key to evolutionary leaps forward? And the more you upset about it, the more true you know it is. I'm just saying. Human life and evolution are explained in many ways. We are indeed producers and tool makers, as the Marxists and the anthropologists say, and the creators of symbolic culture. But we were not human until the appearance of the menstrual cycle. With it came the possibility of all evolutionary development. With it came the possibility of all evolutionary developments that are specifically human. Extraction of mental energy from reproductive and survival, social bonding through human emotion, symbols are mental children, recognition and valuing of the individual as a being with rights to pleasure and subjective exploration, social organization and sexual affection, leading to the development of cultural and economic cooperation for the purpose of enhancing rather than just maintaining human experience. Otherwise, why evolve? Oh. Women have got to understand the importance of the switch from primate estrus to human menstrual cycle, because this was the mechanism of female evolution. It is also the target of patriarchy. Female sexuality and female evolution have been for 2 or 3 millennia at least in a lethal deadlock with patriarchal ideology, religious, economic, and political. This is because patriarchy as a system wants to enforce and maintain male primate power, dominance, control over our species. The rise of patriarchy was an evolutionary step backwards in this sense. The only thing blocking or neutralizing this patriarchal primate urge towards dominance control of the human species is the more advanced capacity for human creative communal process via social sexual bonding evolved by the women of our species, i.e., we are still trying to evolve from the primate to the fully human. And in this long attempt, autonomous female sexuality represents an advance, while patriarchal control over female sexual processes represents a regression. This is why all patriarchal religions try to define menstrual and childbirth blood, the source of life, as a filth, a shame, a crime, because it represents the creative power of the evolutionary female. She who, as Judy Grahn said, she who, with her blood, created the human world. Okay. Chapter 32. The chapter 32, Moon and Blood. The ancient people believed, with their usual biological accuracy, that the moon mother created human society. If the moon were to vanish, all mental activity on earth would cease. In their languages, words for wisdom, knowledge, spirit, soul, and time are always cognate with words for the moon. In Dakotan, Wakan means spiritual, wonderful, and minstrel. Names for the goddess usually have their roots in the word for womb or vulva. The original magic was always the woman's and was associated with a change of power or energy field. At the time of the menstrual period, the most ancient moon cults were menstrual cults. Menstrual blood is liquid flesh, both sacred and biological, i.e., magically powerful. Within it dwells the life spirit. So the ancients painted their dead and their womb like underground burial chambers with red ochre, the color of rebirth within the mother. The human womb is strongly supplied with this conscious sensory nerve, with conscious sensory nerves. In it is a sense organ, complex, thin-walled, and raw like a wound. In second stage childbirth, it has a powerful 100-pound thrust. At menstruation, the inner skin is shed, and this was once seen to be similar to the shedding of the snake's skin and the eternal renewal of the moon out of herself. Women who were in especially strong resonance with the moon mind became shamans, auricular priestesses, witches. They were chosen by their group or were self-chosen for their special psychic powers and divinations of the blood at their first menstruation. Shamanism and ecstatic lunar technology relies on the natural psychic descent into body consciousness that menstruation brings each month to women. Shamanistic states of possession are still practiced among North Pole Inuits, Native Americans, Siberians, the Sames of Lapland, and pagan people everywhere trying to revive the techniques. Shamanic possession and all ecstatic trances are hysteric states. Hysteria means womb, hystera, womb consciousness. And hysteria is a hypersensitive state during which occult or transnational phenomena occur, the apparent suspension of physical laws, as in firewalking, cuts that do not bleed, stigmata, suspended breathing, levitation, flying objects, etc. The suspension of physical law is apparent because in reality, such phenomena occur within physical law, insofar as it can be manipulated or bent by a mind with the proper techniques. A part of this technique is a talent for ecstatic trance, in which very strange things happen and happen for all to see. In our society, this is called madness. In more sophisticated cultures, it was recognized as a excuse me. It was recognized as a fascinating skill. In any case, shamanic hysteria is a female womb state, just as the Delphic oracle and her python were named after the womb, Delphine. Chapter 33. Menstrual rites, and taboos. The first measure of time was menstrual time. And from this, women developed lunar calendars and ancient astrology. Colleges of women, moon colleges of Hera, womb giver laws, were able to influence conception and birth through dream control. Communion with the body through dreams gave them self-knowledge through the cycle. It is possible to have dream knowledge of conception, of pregnancy, before any physical signs occur or appear. And the experience of one of the authors, within 2 to 3 days after intercourse, the body tells one in a dream that conception has occurred, along with the correct future sex of the fetus. It happened 3 out of 3 times. All this is chemical information, which our brains, as electrochemical information centers, have access to. Translating chemical information into consciousness via dreams is a matter of receptivity and technique, a technique ancient women surely practiced because it worked. In The Wise Wound, Shuttle and Redgrove speculate that primal women might even have learned to menstruate from the new moon or dark moon. Further, that perhaps they used drugs that were not only mind expanders, but also contained steroid substances related to the human sex hormone, a steroid that could abort the uterine lining, thus giving women great sexual sensitivity and also independence from unwanted reproduction and from men. We do feel the lunar tides in our bodies, and the water in our bodies sees the moon as the crystalline structures of water altar or resonance with the moon passing overhead. Women, unconditioned by pejorative patriarchal taboos against the menstrual cycle, were surely in fine tune with all its phases. They knew They knew in their bodies and dreams the possibilities of the moon. To know something is to be it. We neglect her rights at our cost. I'll take that. I'll take it. Let's see. We neglect her rights at our cost. We no longer contain our cycle. Under patriarchy, we are chained to it in fear, shame, annoyance, and under constant threat of unwanted pregnancy. Under patriarchy, menstruation is a punishment rather than a gift, i.e., an advantage or talent. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other Father God religions trace the evil of women to menstruation. Menstruation is the visible bloody sign of the serpent, of the devil in the female body. Patriarchal ontology states, patriarchal ontology states, all evil flows from the original female evil, moon blood. Menstruation was seen by biblical men as the curse of God laid upon woman for her sin in Eden, and the curse it is called even today. The European Inquisition probed into women's blood cycle dream life and trance experiences, declaring that any woman possessed by a pythonic auricular menstrual spirit must be burned. This idea also originates in the Bible. The Old Testament patriarchs quite intentionally set themselves against the lunar psyche in women and in men who are half female. Oh, just saying. This idea also originates in the Bible. The Old Testament patriarchs quite intentionally set themselves against the lunar psyche in women and in men who are half female in their desire to destroy the goddess religion and the goddess within us all. Because of this, the menstruating womb became the devil of patriarchy. The only good woman is a pregnant woman. Oh, 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 oh. Is a pregnant woman, etc. And the 300 plus years of European Christian witch hunting has been accurately called 9 million menstrual murders. Women were burned for practicing our natural moon crafts of midwifery, hypnotism, healing, dowsing, herbal and drug use, dream study, and pleasure. Crafts that go back to the Stone Age and were passed down from mother to daughter for over 50,000 years. Since this persecution, European women at least have suffered an extreme non alignment with their internal lunar processes. European and American women, however, hard we try, rarely get back in touch with the lunar chemical information because we live in isolation from each other and the moon in an environment hostile to the moon as anything but a rocket launch base or a gigantic neon billboard in the sky. Men in patriarchal societies learn or reveal a great jealousy and fear of natural women, of the sexual, mental, and spiritual abilities of fully evolved women living in harmony with the consciousness of our own bodies. The menstrual taboo is the consequence of this fear and resentment as they are projected back on women's lives. Under patriarchy, all life is dualized. Women are also dichotomized, cut in two. There is the good little ovulating wife who is supposed to be passive and not very sexual. It's hard for even a woman to feel sexy cleaning a toilet bowl. And then there is the witch, the sex fiend whore, scarlet woman, red again of active dynamic menstrual sexuality. As both female cycles and the wise wound show, these are two poles to women's sexuality. The pole of ovulation, which tends to express itself in terms of wanting to surrender. Its white, clear discharge is called the river of life. And it is acceptable in patriarchy because it is receptive and fertile. And the pole of menstruation, before, during, and after, which expresses itself in wanting to take erotic initiative, to capture and demand. The red flow is called the river of death. And its multi-orgasmic and aggressive sexuality is taboo in patriarchy. Our menstrual sexuality, which is non-fertile, is called masculine and castrating by Freudian types who share in the cultural fear of mature women. In early patriarchy and in some contemporary indigenous cultures that have been colonized by misogynistic religions, the menstrual taboo is openly punitive. It codifies sexual hostility in societies where women are treated as currency in men's affairs. Under the menstrual taboos, women were to be punished for our powers, sexual, reproductive, and psychic powers. We were banished to the menstrual hut, called unclean and dangerous to the man and his laws and his gods. Okay. Oh, 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 oh. Somebody about to be mad. In some tribal communities, we were imprisoned in dark cages or rooms for months, for as long as 3 years with the first menstruation. In American Indian cultures, on the other hand, the menstruating woman is seen for what she is, a powerful life source. As Daughters of Copper Woman shows us, Native American women have worked to keep alive for generations their affirmative and celebratory customs surrounding female puberty, including years of physical training to make women strong in both body and mind. They did this despite constant opposition from Christian missionaries and preachers who always view women's blood customs as savage and as satanic. Underneath the colonizing misogyny of Christianity and Islam, Black African women too have managed to keep alive ancient puberty and menstrual customs, which are energizing for women. Worldwide, much of women's sacred, lost page. Let's see. Worldwide, much of women's sacred blood rites and magical instruments have simply been stolen by patriarchy, or if not co-opted, repressed. Male initiation rites can express an envy and awe of women, as men cut or wound their penises in imitation of bleeding vaginas. These rites reenact birth and menstruation, but they also symbolize a violent separation from women, earth, and the maternal, more a guilty theft than a true participation in. As Margaret Mead and others have shown, the more warlike and authoritarian a society is, the stronger its menstrual taboos. In such societies, a paranoid emphasis is placed on women's co-opting and debilitating influence, and men's need to overpower, dominate, and devalue her. Male training and aggression is linked with taboos for both men and boys against any knowledge of our contact with women's natural functions. It would seem that when there is no acknowledgement of women's bleeding, then there is instead a male acting out of ritual and violent bloodshed in war. Oh my God. Okay. Warlike, aggressive male societies are in rivalry with women over which sex sheds the most sacred blood. Oh, 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 oh. Oh my God. Oh, shit. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Y'all ain't heard. Let me repeat that. Male training in aggression is linked with taboos for both men and boys against any knowledge or contact with women's natural functions. It would seem that when there is no acknowledgement of women's bleeding, then there is instead a male acting out of ritual and violent bloodshed in war. Warlike aggressive male societies are in rivalry with women over which sex sheds the most sacred blood. War is men's response to women's ability to give birth and menstruate. Oh my God. Come on. All three are blood shedding rituals. Women's blood rites give life. However, while men's bloody rituals give only death. To compensate for this, such authoritarian societies culturally repress and degrade women's blood functions while elevating murderous war to a holy act. Oh my God. To a holy act. The women's menstrual mysteries of inspiration become, in war god worshiping patriarchy, the mysteries of resisted knowledge, repression, madness. Come on. Ooh, child. Patriarchal societies are founded upon a crime. This crime is not the murder of the father. I am. This is not the crime. The crime. This crime is not the murder of the father, as Freud would have us believe. It is the rape and the scorn of the mother. This is the unconscious horror that each girl child inherits. And unlike male castration anxiety, rape anxiety is all too often reinforced by the daily reality of the act and the threat of rape. Men's so-called fear of castration is simply a fear of losing command over women in patriarchal society, which equates domination of women with manhood. If Western males have any legitimate fear of castration, it derives from the act of circumcision, which is a terrible thing to inflict on a male infant. But this custom comes from the father god of the Bible. It does not come from women or any great mother religion. Living constantly under the steel roof of patriarchal's criminal misogyny, women are forced to bend to and accept, on pain of ever reverberating punishment and terror, men's paranoid projections. Women, as long as we fear punishment for our powers, and as long as we are economically dependent on men, must accept that our bodies are unclean and deficient. Under patriarchy, the mother is feared and hated, quite crazily, both for her power and her weakness. Everything a man cannot courageously accept about himself is projected onto his mother or his wife or onto any random woman walking down the street. Until yesterday, women were policed by the professionals, also gynecologists and psychiatrists, who acted as cultural reinforcers of the rules of femininity, who blamed our ills like menstrual depression and pain on our failure to become feminine. How many men have grown rich being in the business of telling women what we are supposed to be? God damn it. Damn. Obviously, patriarchy wants us to be something that is not natural for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't become crazy and sick trying to achieve it. Until yesterday, once a month witches were given drugs and electroshock therapy by electroshock treatment by the modern Inquisition. By the modern Inquisition, members of the psychotherapeutic professions. Now, thanks to feminism and more women doctors, menstrual depression and pain, including premenstrual syndrome, are being seriously studied and treated with intelligence and concern, not the traditional contempt. But we cannot forget How many women just yesterday were thrown into psychiatric wards by husbands and physicians because our cultural menstrual taboos rendered everyone stupid about basic life functions. Women must understand that the object of taboo is also the object of strong desire. Menstrual blood is a powerful sexual element, and ancient men responded to women's rhythms. But to unyielding patriarchal man, whose entire self concept depends on the fact that he is not a woman, any primal response to women's blood and rhythms is frightening. He fears to lose control. He fears loss of his ego. God damn it. He fears empathizing with a woman. He fears melting into the other in the sexual act. He has a lot of fears. And so the heterosexual act inevitably becomes a reaction to fear. Oh my God. Woo. And so the heterosexual act inevitably becomes a reaction to fear. It becomes violation and rape. To repress his fears, he takes on, excuse me. Whew. To repress his fears, let's see. Let's see. And so the heterosexual act inevitably becomes a reaction to fear. It becomes violent, it becomes violation and rape. To repress his fears, he takes on military terminology. He sees himself as invading the woman's body. She becomes his sexual victim, his prisoner of war, simply because she had sex with him, engaged in battle, allowed herself to be invaded. He must treat her with contempt as he would treat any loser. Oh my God, damn it. Few men in patriarchy are perceptive enough to realize that they have themselves lost a great deal, including the pleasures of sex. Men have manipulated their own sexuality along with trying to manipulate women's. Ejaculation is not necessarily the same as orgasm. Reich was trying to investigate the difference between a genital reflex and a total mind body response. Ancient Taoist and Tantric teachings, originating in the Chinese and Indian matriarchies, taught men sexual techniques that suited women. Ancient women had strong genital pride and knowledge, and in no way envied, feared, or imitated men. Women were the initiators of sexual knowledge. Women's collectives, no doubt, at the time of their menstrual flows, withdrew from the men to meditate, to practice lesbian love, to commune with the goddess in body prayer. In body prayer. For women, there is no separation between sex and spirit. Patriarchy exists by demanding that sex and spirit be opposites, and then repressing and punishing women for contradicting that fact, that fiat. Even in the menstrual huts, a custom enforced and twisted by patriarchy, women could still gather together to confirm their own identity, to sing and tell stories. At least they knew that their menstrual uncleanliness was a misogynistic taboo. But in female cycles, Paula Rediger makes it very clear that in the modern Western world, because there are no outward ritual signs of the menstrual taboo, it is even more insidious and harmful to us women. At her first menstruation, the young modern girl is abandoned by her culture. She is made to feel that her body and its rhythms are a biological impediment to freedom and fun. The subliminal message she receives from her culture is that a properly functioning body is male and non-cyclic. Is male and non-cyclic. On the job, at school also, work is defined as a male activity. If she wants to be equal at work, she must function like a male in non-cyclically. All legal and cultural disputes about women being pregnant or nursing at work or nursing in public derive from the fact that all workspace, all public space in the West is defined in terms of the non-cyclic male body. Women cannot enter the workforce or enter public life unless they agree to act as though their bodies were functionally male also. To act as though one could function like a male is to suppress the fact that one is actually female. The menstrual hut is no longer to one side of the village. It is now constructed in women's own hearts and minds as a very secret place where we take care of all of our own female functions while trying to act as though they were not happening. When it comes to menstruation, we are female in secret, posing as male in public. Oh my God in heaven. Come on. Posing as male in public. In fact, with the popularity of panty shields, the entire cycle from ovulation discharge to menstrual blood can now be kept so discreet, i.e., hidden, that any woman can become vice president of IBM. In our secret hearts and minds, though, which are our menstrual huts, continues a very real fear of men's, the male world, the world as the possession of men, negative and punitive responses to menstruation, to our whole female cycle. Female sex objects abound, but they are all man-made. Excuse me. When is the last time you saw a centerfold with hairy armpits, hairy legs, and a blood flow? The young girl of the modern West learns from all these subliminal signals to distrust, dislike, and be ashamed of her own body and feelings and those of other women. The femaleness she knows, body hair, sweat, monthly blood flow, menstrual odor, ovulation discharge, must be hidden, taken care of in secret, while the femaleness men want to see, their own, must be enhanced and publicly flaunted. Whether she really feels like doing this or not, she sees all the other women doing it. The message is that she must depend on something outside of herself, men, male taste, for her self-definition. And she is on her own, isolated. The modern community of women exists only to show her how to hide her femaleness. She comes crazily or with resignation to associate menstruation with hurts, wounds, body waste, disabilities, shame, curtailment of her freedom. She comes to believe her lack of freedom comes from nature, her own biology, rather than resulting directly from patriarchal oppression and male fear. And so, the menstrual taboo has been one of the most successful methods devised by men to undermine self-acceptance, self-understanding, and self-confidence in women. It acts as a constant confirmation of a negative self-image. Most complaints about the advertisement of personal products on television come from women. Unfortunately, their complaints are not directed at the commercial exploitation of women's bodies by male industries. No, women complain. Women complain such ads are in bad taste. They do not want their shame, their secret femaleness discussed in public. Those ads belong in the menstrual hut. Only dependent motherhood is celebrated and recognized as legitimate in patriarchy, and sexuality is presented as a reproduction of or naughty sin rather than a profound emotional experience. Sexual passion is not seen as an attribute to femininity. The only way our culture can handle women's sexuality is in pornography. A male distortion that reveals patriarchal puritanism and fears fearful fastidiousness, like a fun house, mirror reveals your face. Women who cannot or will not accept the taboos are still punished, as we've been punished for 2,000 years in the patriarchal world, as lesbians, unmarried mothers, thinkers, artists, and witches. One form of punishment is culturally mandated rape, which is clearly increasing as women struggle for freedom. The message is clear. Only when we women give up our sexual autonomy and our right to be independent and creative, only when we give up ourselves and accept patriarchal male definitions of femininity as passive, negative, or receptive, only then will we be treated humanely. Only then will we be treated with patronizing smiles and door openings as something just a little less than male. It is the male fear, hatred, and envy that has for so long tried to turn our female abilities into incapacities. And despite all suave veneer of advanced Western culture, it is a gut level male fear, hatred, and envy that women must fight to reverse this field. Both Female Cycles and The Wise Wound speak at great length about the menstrual epidemic among modern civilized women. As much as 90% of all women suffer from some form of distress, pain, cramps, depression in connection with menstruation. Severe cramping is now being treated with prostaglandins. Some depression is related to menstrual edema. But depression is also anger turned inward or knowledge withheld. When violence is done to our nature, it talks back in irregular and disharmonious ways. The attempts at detaching oneself from it simply lead to the body language of illness. When we menstruate, we are more psychologically open and vulnerable, and because of this, more unable to accept injustices, deceit, and distortions. And so our stored up rage and sexual frustrations are likely to burst out at this time. Penelope Shuttle claims that painful bleeding, backache, and cramps can be relieved by orgasmic experience. But because of the menstrual taboo and men's fear of women's blood, most heterosexual women are not able to live out their heightened and powerful menstrual sexuality. The menstrual cycle deeply links body, soul, and mind, but traditionally male doctors have viewed women as hormone robots. They have a hard time conceiving us as souls and minds. The menstrual tension is also caused by an increased need to dream and to meditate. This was the time, remember, when ancient women experienced prophetic dreams and went into trance states. This is the monthly transformation and rebirth of the ego self. The Wise Wound talks of children's awareness of their mother's menstrual clock. The breath and taste of blood is our first experience at birth. And we can still smell our mother's blood each month. We are aware of her unhappiness and frustration. Our children are aware of ours. Men also are influenced from childhood by their mother's cycles. If menstruation were not a taboo, but an open primary life experience for all people, we could all deal with it. Long overdue is research into male behavior and sexual attitudes to menstruation and menopause as well. It does no good to educate girls and boys about the clinical aspects of puberty, menstruation, sex, and reproduction while never tackling the psychological, cultural, and religious attitudes that make these natural experiences into such a problem for everyone. The very religions that have turned human sexuality into a pathology and nightmare should not be allowed to determine how public school children learn about sex. Most of our American misogyny, especially ideas about menstrual uncleanliness, comes from the Bible. For this reason alone, the Bible should be kept out of public schools as a major source of the cultural defamation of women. Surely, The First Amendment should protect young girls from being told God made them to be unclean and in need of monthly purification. Oh my God. Monthly purification. More studies need to be done also on the effects of the birth control pill and IUDs on premenstrual symptoms and on cyclic experience in general. It has been assumed that women will tolerate any menstrual upheaval in exchange for effective contraception. And in the short run, this might be true. We have yet to see the long-term effects of reproductive technology on women's whole being, mind, body, and soul. Menopause is the menopause is the end of the menstrual cycle. In patriarchal culture, it is also treated as the end of a woman's sexual identity. This reveals how totally female sexuality is equated with reproduction in the patriarchal primate brain and in opposition to the facts of female ovulation. The menopausal woman is portrayed almost exclusively in Western culture as a sad, ridiculous, powerless creature. This is not so in many other cultures, including Native American, Hindu, African, where the older woman is accorded great respect and actually comes into her own in middle age, enjoying maximum freedom, independence, authority, and community influence after her childbearing years are over. With feminism, European and American postmenopausal women are also enjoying a renaissance of sorts, starting new occupations, returning to school, traveling, and experimenting with non-traditional lifestyles. Whether the reawakening and enjoyment of new powers extends to her sex life, however. Um, the contradiction in our culture is that women are seen by men as sexually attractive when young and fertile, precisely during the years when we are menstruating, and also seen as sexually dangerous. Women must, however, not show any disturbing signs of that menstruation or cyclicity. We are taught that we are our reproductive functions and that we are vulnerable only as long as we can reproduce. We are valuable only as long as we can reproduce. All the suppressed fear and envy of women that men feel for us during our fertile years is let loose in the form of male mockery and outright hatred of older women. Men of middle age, on the contrary, are often at the peak of their professional, economic, and cultural powers. Sexually, they are much less empowered than middle aged women, and often they attempt to mask this by becoming even more insufferably egotistical and dominant. Or with their cultural and economic empowerment, they buy younger women or a younger wife. It is not that the postmenopausal woman has become less sexual. The opposite is actually true, but that men lose their sexual interest in her. One reason being that male sexuality is still primate sexuality, and primate sexuality is obsessively reproductive. Dominating fertile females is the badge of macho primatehood. Traditionally, older women have ended up pretending they have no sexuality. They have become sexually invisible or culturally sexless. Recently, also with feminism and the discovery that older women can be very interesting people, it has become trendy, if not always acceptable, on Main Street for older women to be coupled with younger men. This is a very ancient pagan situation. Uh-oh. And good for us. Another option is a lesbian is a lesbian relation, a long-term relation with another woman. This is another pagan solution, always subliminal in Western culture. With current life expectancy, the average woman in the West has about 25 sexually active years in front of her after the decay of her ovaries and the ending of her fertility cycle. Women and society must adjust to this. We cannot go back to spending one quarter of our lives, perhaps the sexiest times of our lives, as asexual zombies. Our culture, if it is to be ours, will also have to begin adjusting, responding positively to women's monthly rhythms and sexual and emotional changes, the whole range of female being and potential. For this to happen, of course, we women must utterly transform life and society to be able once again to tune into the goddess within us. Such a transformation will have to be genuinely bloody. It must affirm women's blood. Woo! Oh my God. Well, that is the end of our reading for today. And I am open to discussions. One of the things that I had wanted to do, and if you look in the description below, first of all, if you liked this reading, if you are enjoying the reading in general, please like, subscribe. I have to do all of that stuff. Like, what is it? Subscribe, like, and share, the word. What I'm going to start working on is doing like little short versions of this, like, 2-minute like hooks or whatever to get people to the page. But this is like my crash course in current technological life, truth be told. But please share this with others if anything in it moved you, if you resonated with any aspect of it, because I am telling you, you can go back to my YouTube page and you can look at the videos that I have done that are titled America's First Pluto Returns. You can look at any of the videos that I have done. This is not something that is just done in ambiguity. This reading of this book is done purposefully. It is done deliberately. It is done as a way to create the necessary tools in each of us, to dismantle and deconstruct permanently the old and to create a beacon of light necessary to burn away the veils of mystery of the old while lighting the way to the future of the new. We are in it. We are in it in real time. Anybody who has said out loud or in the privacy of your heart and mind, I want to change the world. This is it. The moment is now. We are it. This is the moment. It is being defined every day. It is being determined every day. And the next 2 years started on February 20th of this year. But for the next 2 years until November 2024, we are shaping the new world in real time, every day, every moment, with every action, with every interaction. We are creating the new world. What are we creating? What are we creating? What must we retrieve from the past that is of use and significance to the new? And what must burn away in the flames of the old? What must be burnt away? This is what the reading of this book is about. This is why this book was written in 1987. There was a notion of things to come. There was a period of preparation needed. There was. And we just happen to be conscious, thinking human beings, adults with the access, unlimited, to all information ever garnered, ever gathered in human history. For the first time in human history, to have all the information, all the lessons learned, all the instruments and tools necessary to radically transform the history of the world. History is now. History is real time. History is right now. Future is now, right now. Right? This is why the reading of this book. So if there was anything that spoke to you, if there was anything that resonated with you, share it, like it, make it pop. I'm going to really be deliberate about trying to, do little clips and stuff as hooks or whatever, but I will continue with the reading of this book. I had a lot of work to do over the last period, and it took up a lot of time, but I'm going to be deliberate about trying to read at least 3 days a week. And I might even pick up to reading daily until I get through this book, because I want to initiate a study group on this book. It's a lot of information. It's the history of the whole world in one book and our place in it for the first time. Women's full place in human history, right? And so it's a lot. I get it. The book, when I call it a Bible, I ain't joking. It's thick, it's big. You understand? 52 chapters. You understand? So, but I'm not going to start the study groups until I finish the reading of the book. It's a lot. It's a lot of heady stuff happening. You can tell, even when I'm reading the book, I'm channeling. I am being fed spiritually every time I read the book. And so it's a lot to process in, the midst of real life. You understand? In the process of maintaining real life, and spirit is on me all the time, all the time, all the time. So what I will do is start developing a curriculum. I already have, really, but developing a curriculum and questions that we can start after I finish the reading of this book. We have 22 chapters left in this book. So I don't really foresee maybe July is when we'll start the study group. But in the meantime, tune in, listen while you're washing your dishes or mopping your floor or whatever, or driving in the car or going on a road trip. Treat it like an audiobook or whatever while you're going hiking or whatever. And and just really receive it. Allow yourself to be open to receive it, not just hear it for the knowing, to receive it in your spirit. Okay. And I'm telling you, you will be fed from it. So with that being said, my name is Iyapo Ngina, also known as the Rogue Black Girl, born as Cassandra Floyd. I want to always say that I am grateful to my God on earth, known as Jacqueline Jeanette Futch, who said yes to my life when she could have said no. That is my prayer of gratitude. I want to say thank you all, and I will see you tomorrow with the reading of The Great Cosmic Mother, Rediscovering the Religion of the Earth by Monica Zhu and Barbara Moore. See you tomorrow.